Welcome back to another video, and today we will be having the final part of my yearly eyeshadow ranking. So today we will be seeing what were my ultimate top 10 eyeshadow palettes from this year's palettes that were released. And for the disclaimers that I have had in my other videos, there will only be palettes here that I have tried first time this year, so the palettes haven't necessarily been released this year. There are quite many that did come out this year, but there might also be just some palettes that I got into my collection this year. And the second disclaimer is that if a palette has been decluttered from my collection, then it obviously won't be included. And if you have not watched any of my previous ranking videos, so I have ranked my drugstore, my indie palettes and my higher end palettes. So these are the sort of top 10 from all of those categories combined. But let's get now to the palette ranking itself and see what were the my ultimate top 10 this year. So let's get to the number 10 and 9, and these probably won't surprise you if you have sort of been hearing what I've been speaking about. So at number 9 and 10 are my drugstore palettes, that these two which ranks the highest in my drugstore ranking. However, when faced with the other palettes included in this video, it is quite obvious that these sort of ranked on the bottom. I would like to preface by saying that there is nothing wrong with either of these palettes quality-wise. It's just that compared to the sort of other palettes that I have tried this year, these are sort of where they landed. But let's first discuss about this one. So this is the Kiko Milano's holiday palette from this year. And I will show how this looks like. And as I said, nothing wrong with the quality, and this was my second favorite ranked palette from my drugstore palette. It's just that altogether this is a very, how should I say, quite an average palette. The shadow quality is very good, the shimmer shades are very nice, it's just that it's nothing that special compared to the other palettes. But however, I still would say that if you're looking for this palette and thinking about buying this, the quality is very good and stable, and I do like the sort of effect that they put in some of the holiday packaging this year, which was the sort of yellow effect when you turn it around. Then to the number 9, so this was the MUA Blush Nudes, and this was my first drugstore palette this year. And similarly, like I said with the Kiko, nothing wrong with the quality, and especially why this ranked, I would say, even above the Kiko one, was that compared to the price difference. So the Kiko Milano holiday palette is 20-something euros full priced. I got mine on Black Friday, during Black Friday sale, but the normal price of it is over 20 euros. However, you can get these MUA palettes 10 euros or under depending where you live. And like I said on my drugstore ranking video, the quality of the mattes and shimmers is just something that I have much more expensive palettes in my collection that don't have the similar quality in terms of shadows that this has. Obviously, one downside is that the packaging is quite cheap. It's just light plastic. But those were the palettes ranking 10 and 9 from all of the palettes that I tried this year. So next, number 8 in this ranking, and this is the Dior Backstage Silver Essentials palette, and I'm gonna open it and show. So the reason why this is ranking 8, just like with other palettes, quality-wise this is very good, and this is actually, like, I was very positively surprised about the quality of this. As I said in my higher end, this ranked relatively high in the higher end palette ranking, and what I said especially was that how much of a punch these shadows pack, because usually you think with this traditional department store brands that the shadows are very sheer and light, but this one actually you can build and they do pack quite a punch. However, in the same time they are very blendable. This is one of the few palettes, for example, that I can do a smoky eye with without having the fear that I will look like a panda bear at the end of the day. However, why it sort of ranks at the 8, while the satin and matte shades are nice, the palettes ranking above this, they have a bit something more extra or special in them. However, if you're looking for good, reliable, higher end shadows at this sort of like traditional department store luxury brands, then I think that you can't go wrong with this one, and I hope that when Dior comes with more Backstage palettes in the future, they will keep this formula, because the formula of this is something very good. And then to the number 7. So this was a palette, if you watched my indie palette ranking this year, this is one of the palettes that did I had quite high expectation, but it quite didn't live up to it. So in this spot we have this one, so Glaminatrix Rich Romantic, and I think I made it quite obvious in my indie palette ranking that if the shimmer formula of this would be something that does not crease on me, and it would only maybe have been like 1 or 2 shimmers, then this would probably be ranking very high. Unfortunately, as I said, because the shimmer formula, and this applies to all the shimmers that I have tried from this palette, they do crease, and they don't only crease a little bit, they crease in a way that they almost like come off from your eyelids during the daytime. And that is what sort of puts it in the bottom half of the ranking. However, as I said in the indie palette ranking, the matte quality of this, the mattes you do have to build them a little bit, however it's nothing that you would have to go over and over again to their eyes. And the shimmers, when they stay on your eyelid, they are very beautiful, they are very dimensional, they are very sparkly. And the color story is definitely something that I enjoy, because there are like pinks, there's neutrals, there's a bit of muted purples, and then you have these sort of very shifty, sparkly shades to complement them. But yeah, a bit of a disappointment in terms of the expectations I had, but anyway, I would still like say that if you want to buy this and this is still available, because I'm not sure was this a limited edition palette, then I would still encourage you to try it and maybe just use NYX glitter glue or something else to see if the shimmers will last better with that kind of a base. And to the spot number 6, so now we're starting to get to the palettes that all were sort of like very, how should I say, there wasn't, well, a few of them, there are some perhaps small issues, but generally now from the number 6, all of these were very good, and I'd say that from number 6 on it was quite hard to sort of rank each palette. But at the number 6 spot we have this one, so this was a Jewels and Gem from Oden's Eye, and here is what she looks like. And as I mentioned on my indie review, and I do think that I might have featured this, I think I have featured this in one of my sort of makeup review roundup videos. And what I already said about this one is that the quality is very solid. Oden's Eye quality is something that, for example, the holiday palettes this year didn't have. But the mattes are so easy to build, they are you can blend them together, you can blend the dark shades with the lighter shades, and it will look very like easily, very nice on you, you don't get hard lines. The shimmers are all very amazing, they have good base, and there are like 1 or 2 bit more toppery like shimmers, but generally the shimmers here do have an opaque base. And generally I do think that this was a very like appropriate end of the fall palette for me, so this sort of in-between season between fall and when entering into the winter time. So I enjoyed very much the sort of darker, grungier looks that I got with this one. But yeah, how should I say, this ranked at number 6 because the other palettes before this I like them more, and I would still say perhaps with this one that this is definitely not, for example, a palette that I would gravitate towards the whole year around. So on summer, springtime this is perhaps something a bit too dark for me, but definitely to the end of the fall time this will be a palette that I will be digging out more in the future. And on the number 5th spot we are having another high-end luxury palette, so this is the Byredo Remembrance palette, and this was a limited edition palette, so unfortunately you won't be able to get this anymore. And Byredo has been doing this, that they have quints that they do release quite many of around the year, but these bigger palettes so far my observation has been that they only come out with these once a year, so I'm waiting for the springtime, because spring seems to be when they come out with these, to see which is the next one. However, about this palette, why it sort of ranks where it does, again, the palettes before this I like them a bit more. However, what I did emphasize in my own like higher-end ranking was that what particularly like why I like this was that you wouldn't initially think that these golds and silvers and peaches, that these would go together. However, everything within this palette goes together so well, it's so effortless to work with. This is definitely one of those palettes that if you just need something quick in the morning before going out of the door, you can basically take any of these shades and combine with them the satins or the bit more sparklier shades in this one, and you will always get a nice cohesive look. Of course, the downside of this is that the shimmers are this more satin-like, and some of them have a bit more sparkle, but you don't get any sort of special indie shimmers with this one. But I do think that the quality is something very exceptional, and I would definitely say that instead of buying the quints, wait for Byredo to see Byredo during springtime to see that if they come out with these bigger palettes and if the color story is something you like. I would much rather save the bit more money because the quints are expensive, and this is also I think closer to 90 or 100 euros, so this is also an expensive buy. However, I would say that still, because of the amount of shades you get, it is like worth spending the extra money if this is the kind of formula and kind of color story that you're into. But yeah, that was my palette number 5. And to the 4th spot, so this one will be the Blend Bunny Dollhouse palette, and this was the first Blend Bunny palette that I have ever tried, and this is an older palette that didn't come out this year, but I got it this year when it became available in Monolith Shop, which is an indie brand retailer within the European Union. We can get quite a lot of the sort of popular US indie brands from there quite a lot easier. And this is how the palette looks like, and now I'm gonna see if I will be able to fit in the frame. And why this is ranked so highly, first of all, I have been reaching for this palette quite a lot. So this is the sort of palette that even if I would have something newer in my collection, I am still drawn towards using this one. So that is definitely why it's ranking very highly. And I'd say second is that the quality of these shadows, like these pastel shades, you only need like one layer and they will show up. The darker shades, which I was very afraid of that, for example, in my light fair skin tone, how these will work, these blend so effortlessly that even on a more lighter skin tone you will be able to work with them. The mid-tone shades again complement all of the sort of colors that are mixed in here, and then the shimmers are very beautiful, they are very creamy, they are very opaque. You don't get any of these, like some of these shimmers do have a bit of a shift to them, but these aren't like super shifty multichromes or anything. But I just say that everything in this palette, it just works very effortlessly together. You can get a bit more colorful looks with this one, though they will be very muted, but you can also get these sort of very muted looks. So altogether I'd say that this is a formula. I hope that when I will get my next Blend Bunny palette, because I did discuss in the indie palette ranking that unfortunately the Sugar and Grunge palette that I did come out this year and I did buy, unfortunately I felt the formula of that one was downgraded from this. So next time Blend Bunny comes out with a color story that I do like, because their newer palettes haven't been exactly, haven't made me that excited, so I haven't bought them, but when the next Blend Bunny palette comes out that I do want to buy, then I hope it will have a similar formula to this one, because I don't think you can really beat the formula in this. But yeah, this was my sort of top 4 from all the palettes that I tried from this year. And to the number 3. So number 3 is this one. So this is the Mothership, Pat McGrath Mothership Huetopian Dream palette, and now I'm gonna see if I will be able to get this open. So this was the palette that ranked the highest from my higher end palettes, and I say why it is now on the 3rd spot is that while the Pat McGrath matte formula is not something I'm particularly fond of, it does need a little bit more work. What made this special was the sort of 4 shades in this one. So we have 3 of these traditional, I believe she calls them astral lit shades that do have a bit of shift to them. And then there is this one sort of creamier shade, which is actually a multichrome. And these sort of 4 shades, when I had to think about, for example, between this one and the Blend Bunny palette, I did in the end take into consideration that while the Blend Bunny palette does have more versatility and certainly the mattes are much better than the Pat McGrath mattes, this does have these sort of 4 shades that they sort of like every time I do end up creating a look with this one, it makes me go a bit more like wow because of the transformative shades on this corner. But yeah, I still think that in terms of Pat McGrath, like I bought this on sale this summer, and I would recommend you to also just wait for sales, which he has been running like very, very often this year. And this is definitely, as I said on my higher end palette ranking, I don't think I will be buying Mothership palettes, especially the new one, because she no longer has this sort of special formula in them. They are now just basic shimmers that have a bit of a shift to them, and she's still asking for this very sort of high price. I believe they are now like 180 euros or something, so I don't believe these are worth the over one. Particularly the newest Mothership palette isn't like worth the over 120 euro price. However, these older ones that still have the sort of baked astral lit formula from those ones, I wouldn't say like pay 120 euros, just wait for a sale, because they will be on sale. But anyway, this was my number 3 from this year's palettes. And to the number 2, so if you have watched if you have watched the ranking videos, then it's probably not gonna surprise which palettes are number 1 and 2. But on the number 2 spot is this one, so this is the Samarian Sunset palette from Adept Cosmetics, and this was their sort of Starstruck themed collab, and this is one of those indie palettes that makes me go like wow, and this is why it is so ranking so high for my, not only within the indie palettes but also within my top 10 palettes altogether. And it's just that these shimmers, I think Adept really succeeded in sort of like formulating these shimmers that create the sort of wow effect when you put them on your lids. You are almost able to use this as a standalone palette. The 2 lighter matte shade, the peachy one and the yellow one, those don't really show up even if you build them, but the like 3 darker mattes you can sort of use, and I have been able to like make a cohesive looks with this one, even though I would wish that also the 2 other lighter mattes would have worked as well as the darker ones. But the shimmers are definitely the star of the show. There are a few formulas here that do crease on me a little bit, but it's not all of the shimmers. So Adept has a couple of shimmer formulas that they use, and the creasing, I don't feel it is not as bad as perhaps with some other palettes that have been mentioned in my ranking videos. But yeah, I say that if you have been eyeing this palette and you can afford the price of this, I don't think you will be disappointed in it, because the effect of these shimmers is truly something quite amazing. But just make the consideration, because this is one of the more expensive Adept palettes, that is this something that you really will use, and especially if you are not a fan of warm tone shimmers, then I wouldn't put my money on this. But if you really like your sort of warm tones and greens, then I think this is something very special that you won't be disappointed in. And also with the number 1, no surprises here. So my number 1 palette that I got and tried this year was this one. So this is the Muse palette by Cosmic Brushes, or as they are now rebranding themselves as Cosmic Beauty. And I don't think I have anything add to my sort of indie palette ranking, so here it is. I just think that the color combination of this there is something very attractive in this with me. There is sort of color here, but there's also neutrals. There are some sort of colors that may force me maybe go a bit outside of my comfort zone, which are definitely these darker purples and having this sort of darker green here and this sort of teal green here. But in the same time, they are quite safe tones for me. So we have pinks, there is a red, there is a brown. We have this sort of like more pastel-like shades. So altogether, this I think is very like, how should I say, it's a very like me palette in a color story. Also the formula in this, I'm considering the prices that Cosmic Brushes does ask from the palette. I just think the formula beats quite a lot of the more like expensive formulas that are on the market. The shimmers here are very beautiful. They last on your eyes the whole day. This one didn't have the sort of, now they're putting sort of 1 or 2 multichromes in their palette, so this one doesn't have that one, but I'm not really like disappointed in that, because some of these shimmers still do have a bit of a shift to them, and they are sort of like they can transform the look that you're having quite completely. But yeah, and this is I'd say that if you have been eyeing for this, and I do believe the owner is restocking this palette as long as there's demand for it, just keep an eye on the Cosmic Brushes like website and on their Instagram, because they are a smaller indie brand, so they always, when they run out of stock, they always have to order a new batch from the factory, and that is something that you just have to consider when buying from the indie brands. But yes, definitely I would say that worth every euro I paid for it, and the cover again very beautiful, this sort of rosy nature themed, and I am very excited to see what the brand comes out with next year. Their Winter Wonderland palette and Gothic palettes are something that I didn't buy because the color stories aren't something that I'm so into, but I hope next year there will be newer palettes from the brand that I will be excited again to buy them. But that was my top 1 and the last palette in my ultimate top 10 ranking this year. So, though that was it, that was the last part of this very long ranking series that I've been making. Comment down below what were your sort of ultimate palette favorites from this year that you tried for the first time, or if you were just happy with your older palettes, then certainly comment down below what were sort of older palettes that you were liking. I think I will be putting this out as a bonus video on Christmas, so happy Christmas to those who are, or Merry Christmas to those who are celebrating. In some countries they celebrate on 24th, and I know in some countries you celebrate on the Christmas day, which is the 25th. And also I think I will want to put this out to those, because I know for some people Christmas isn't a happy celebration, or you just don't celebrate it. So if you're just looking for content to consume and spend your time when everyone else is sort of in their Christmas mood, then this is a video you can certainly entertain yourself with. But if you like this video, push the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell button if you want to get notifications from my future video. I hope you're having a good day wherever you are, and I hope I will be seeing you in another video soon. Bye bye!